Beautiful. Frieren Beyond Journey's End is here, guys, and my gosh, it is everything that I want it to be. It is beautiful, visually breathtaking, so atmospheric, so much emotional. I'm already getting worked up just with the first 4 episodes, which is a 2-hour-long premiere, which was absolutely fantastic way to start this season. It's already going down as probably going to be possibly my anime of the year. I'm just loving it to death if it can keep up this. But yes, I'm here to give my first impressions of the series. Apparently going to be going for 2 whole cours, which is excellent. We're going to get plenty of content here, but yes, this is my first impressions of Frieren Beyond Journey's End, so let's jump right into it. Frieren Beyond Journey's End opens up with Frieren, who is a part of the hero's party. They has just defeated the Demon Lord, and they're returning back home, and they're going to be continuing on their lives. Already on the way home talking about, okay, I'm going to... What jobs are we going to get and everything, because obviously life moves on, the world moves on, and these people are going to have to find jobs and live the rest of their lives. Well, after celebrations and everything, it just so happens to be that this is the day that a meteor shower happens, and this is something that only happens every 50 years. And so as they're watching this and they think it's beautiful, Frieren speaks up and says, well, in 50 years, I'll come back here and I'll show you a place where you can see it better. Which, yes, obviously, 2 humans and even a dwarf are going to scoff at this. Like, in 50 years? Yes, technically, Frieren is an elf, so she lives a long time, so the idea of, well, just come back 50 years and we'll just go check it out is kind of baffling to them. Well, following this whole promise, she ends up going on a journey, spending 50 years traveling around the world and trying to find more spells. It seems like Frieren's hobby is just finding spells. Before finally, after 50 years, returning back home and discovering, yes, the hero Himmel himself is really old. And yes, Hator, the priest, is really old. And even the dwarf is losing a lot of his vigor. But she still fulfills her promise in bringing them out to a location where they can see the meteor shower better. At which point, Himmel tells her, thanks so much for giving me this one last great experience. Yes, mortality is eventually going to reach these people. And what sort of follows this whole ordeal is really Frieren, this elf that lives a long time, discovering a lot of things about the world itself. The mortality of humans, appreciating what's around you, taking for granted the time that you have. And yes, learning lessons from all these very brief and, as she calls it, trifling moments that she spent with her party members. Frieren sees things completely different than most other people, and especially most other races. Living a long life, not seeing the value in every minute that you have, and sadly having regrets for not really taking advantage of the moments that she had with people around her. Eventually, the priest ends up having Frieren take in an apprentice, Fern, and she'll journey with her, collecting different spells, and additionally walk the path that they once walked when they were going on their journey to defeat the Demon Lord. All these memories dredging up within her that shows her a bigger picture of her life. So my thoughts on Frieren Beyond Journey's End. My gosh, like I said at the very beginning, this show is so... Let's start off with visuals. This show is absolutely gorgeous. Just, I love the style of it. At first, when I seen the PVs, I wasn't even sure if I'd like Aizen's design, the dwarf. He just kind of looks a little bit weird, but I'm just loving all these character designs. And again, the visuals are so stinking beautiful. Just the environments, the attention to detail, all these things just make this show just, it breathes life into this world. It has its own kind of style to it. It's a very soft style to it, but just the added over amount of animation, can I say that? The excessive amount of animation just really makes this show come to life. It's just something that you can just find yourself immersed into. It's really one of those scary things that when you're watching the episodes, and like I said, it was broken down in 4 episodes for me, going through the episodes, it's really like an episode ends and you're going, wait, that was 24 minutes or whatever. It's like, wow, this show is just going by so fast because I'm getting trapped in the show. Everything just looks so absolutely gorgeous. I think if you wanted to pull one thing out of it, if you like sat me down and said, you have to say something negative about the visuals of the show, I would probably say the magic itself, the effects of the magic, but it's not even that big of a deal. It's like, yeah, it's just like a stylistic choice. It still gets the point across, this is magic. It's kind of got its own unique look to it. It looks very kind of, I don't know, voidish, dark type of spells, and there's not much detail around it itself, but it still gets the impact there. The effect of it, the animation of it is still amazing. It's just kind of a style choice. But again, you have to drag that out of me. Everything else is just absolutely beautiful and just so absolutely immersive. And even when it gets kind of comical and stuff like that, I think they do a really good job of it. Like just watching Fern dragging Frieren around the town when she's like half asleep, it just looks so freaking cute. It just like, literally like the joke is in the show, it looks like Fern's just dragging her child around. The comedic beats are really selling it, and it's just, yeah, having Frieren getting stuck inside of mimics all the time. It's just a through and through gorgeous show. The perspective shots, the directing is just so on point. There's so much stuff that really kind of draws more out of each moment and moment. Nothing really looks stale. Nothing looks too boring. Every shot looks like there's a lot of effort being put into it. And it all makes sense because obviously we have the director here that worked on Boat to the Rock. And that is a director that honestly puts in that extra effort. Really does go that extra mile to make something presented so beautifully. So hats off to them. Really fantastic. Next, music. Yes, I don't bring up music much. It's usually whenever it's like, I don't know, I think the last time was Dangers in My Heart, which was absolutely beautifully directed with the music itself. But yes, of course, we have the musician here that worked on Violet Evergarden, and their music is just shining so much in the series. Just so much of the emotional points kicking in there, and it's just like, oh, this music just is killing me. Just a rare case where the music stands out to me in a good way, in a way that it's enhancing the emotion of the scene. Absolutely beautiful music. But yeah. But the show itself, the story itself, I will admit there's probably going to be, I really do feel like Frieren's going to be one of those shows that is going to be so split for a lot of people. It's either going to work or it's just going to be boring. And I think that's probably an aspect of the, yes, the PV kind of shows a lot of the action scenes and stuff like that, but the show is not action. This series, so far that I know of, doesn't seem like it's going to be action. This is atmospheric. This is about the time that you're in. It is all about characters. It's about time. It's about regrets. It's about appreciating things around you. It's those kind of things. It's just, this is literally like a slice of life fantasy and a slice of life of an elf, which is a lot of time. And I think that slowness is probably going to bug a lot of people. I don't feel that this is slow paced, and I'm sure that that's going to be the argument for a lot of people is the pacing is wrong. No, this feels like it's hitting each point and not settling around too much. It's really moving the story along great, and it's spending enough time to get the impact of the moment that it's going into. So yes, if you've not watched this show, go into expecting this is going to be a slow-feeling show. This is about the moment. But if that's okay with you, and it is okay with me, I think it's absolutely amazing because it's hitting all these points so well. And additionally, it's showing that transition of time itself in a very creative way. One really key point is early on. When Frieren leaves, she says, okay, we're going to meet again in 50 years. I might come back at some point. You know, I'm going to travel around for like 100 years. And everybody kind of just goes, that's Frieren. That's an elf. She doesn't see time the same way we do. Now, granted, we only know so far Frieren as an elf. And so it could be different for other elves, but the assumption here is that, yes, elves see time differently. But what was cool is when she leaves, at some point she realizes, oh yeah, that's right, I'm supposed to go back and see everybody in 50 years. So that the moment that she mentions that, it's like that jarring moment where you're like, oh wait, so 50 years passed. It almost feels, you can argue that it's just time skip, let's get through this, let's get back there. But it really feels like, okay, she travels a little bit, she talks to some store clerk, and then she's talking to the store clerk again, and suddenly it's 50 years past. And it's kind of like that jarring thing because you realize, oh, that's right, we're in Frieren's perspective, and 50 years is trifling. And so it was a really cool transition there. And now, it doesn't really seem like it's wanting to stick with that whole thing of let's keep jumping time, but it's enough to kind of show you that aspect of how Frieren sees time so differently than other people. And that seemed to be like the main theme of this thing, and it keeps kicking it in. Now, it seems like, again, soft spoilers here for these first 4 episodes, it does seem like that's something that is becoming aware to Frieren. This idea of stop wasting time. Time moves differently for those around you. And that's mainly because now, while she's traveling around, she has Fern with her. And Fern is somebody that does not like wasting time. It seems like she has a lot of acknowledgement of how much time they're spending, and she keeps getting on to Frieren about it. Frieren doesn't see time the same as everybody else. And that was really the thing that I assumed was going to be the core aspect of the story. Time, regrets, and realizing what you lost. Realizing what you missed out on. And again, I think the time thing is being played out so well. I love this idea that she's constantly doing things for an excessive amount of time, and Fern's going, we need to move on. You're wasting too much time on this. All you're really doing is collecting random spells, and you're wasting too much time on it. I really love how they're kind of portraying that. But yes, obviously the bigger and most impactful thing, the thing that's going to get me teary-eyed constantly, and it did it with these first episodes, is the aspect of regret. The aspect of what you missed out on. There is a core theme here that she spent so much time with Himmel, Hater, Eisen, these party members, and never appreciated the time that she had. constantly realizing that she didn't know much about them, despite the fact they knew so much about her. They were observing her. They were wanting to learn more about her, but she never wanted to learn much about them. And now, after time has passed, after it's been, the realization point comes to her, she suddenly realizes, I wish I knew more about them. And that's where it starts to hit. And I love how it's portraying that so far, just the emotion that's coming from that. Not that Frieren is becoming outright, over the top emotional and there's drama beats and it's like, oh my gosh, and this long monologue about the things that you lose. No, it's just simply showing this right here was important. I wish I understood that. This is suddenly more important. A brief flashback. Yeah, that was important to him. I wish I'd seen how important that is. It's subtly showing Frieren's journey and how it's changing her slowly over time. This isn't a light switch. And I appreciate that. And again, going back to my earlier statement, that might be too slow for people. But I think that's the point. This is a girl that's lived a long time, and suddenly now she's learning what's important. And it's going to take a long time for her to get that into her head. And it's doing it subtly enough that every now and then when you do see her smile, when you do see that she appreciates something, it's more impactful. It's exactly what I got a sense of when I read the first few chapters of the manga before the series came out. That emotion hit me. And I realized as I'm watching the show, they're pulling that off. They're adapting it so well. I even went back and flipped through it because I only read really enough for the first 2 episodes originally. I checked the manga again after watching the show. Looks like nothing's really being skipped. So it's hitting all the detail, it's hitting all the beats, all while being very atmospheric. Another key story beat that seems like is going to be a focus of this series is really companionship. And again, that kind of plays into the previous thing, this idea of the character, Frieren especially, coming to a realization of those around her and what companionship is. And additionally, the things that we learn from others. One of the earlier key points, not just for Frieren, but Hater, is the idea that at some point in his life, he realized that he didn't want to waste his life away. He thought after defeating the Demon Lord, I'm just going to waste around and spend the rest of my life having fun. But then at some point he realized, no, that would be a waste for the things that Himmel taught me. I realized at that point I need to use the lessons that I learned from him and not waste them away. And part of that whole thing was how Himmel the hero, always helped other people. He never turned a blind eye to people. And this is something that is not only imprinting on Frieren, but it's imprinted on the others as well. Himmel changed everybody's lives. And so they wanted to use that knowledge and that experience to better the world itself. And again, that is through Hater really, is imprinting it on Frieren as well. That is that realization that I don't need to just travel around, be alone, because yes, that's the most convenient. I can travel the world and never have a problem as long as I'm alone. If I have a companion, if I have an apprentice that I don't want, that's going to weigh me down. And I don't want to have the regrets of that apprentice dying on me. It's her learning not only the idea of, yes, loving the things that has happened in her life, using all the knowledge that she had learned from others, but additionally also accepting the idea of companionship and the experiences that you can have with others. I have really been enjoying a lot of the chemistry between the characters as well. I mean, obviously the big funny one is the idea of Frieren taking on Fern as an apprentice, and then slowly over time it seems like Fern is kind of having to take care of Frieren. I got an absolute kick out of the whole Frieren's not a morning person whole ordeal and kind of having to drag her around and everything and get her cleaned and feed her and everything. It just is super cute. And obviously a lot of the brief moments that we're seeing between all of the other characters is great as well. Seeing Hater and how he's grown a lot as a character, seeing a lot of Himmel himself and all the great deeds that he has done, and then getting into Aizen and how he sees things a lot differently as well. Getting into aspects of religion and afterlife and stuff like that that is really kind of viewed differently between each one of them. Frieren understanding it from a magic perspective and the idea that magic can't observe souls, so it can't prove or disprove it, so it's either way for them. The idea of, obviously, dwarves having a different perspective on the afterlife. And then again, Hater and the religions of the people, and the idea that this isn't a religion that has only recently come to being, how Frieren's kind of pointing that out. Yet, that acceptance that even Hater has in the idea that, yes, there could be a possibility that there is no afterlife, but it's convenient to think that it does exist because it gives people something to look forward to rather than something of nothingness. It's a lot of interesting dynamic between the characters and how they see things. And yes, obviously, the more emotional part of it is the aspect of Himmel. Somebody that has grown old, that is going to pass away, and the relationship that he had with Frieren during their journey. Slowly over time through these flashbacks, we're getting a perspective that Frieren is sort of having that realization of how important Hamel was to her, something that she never really acknowledged before, but how she's now wanting to do a lot of things that Hamel wanted her to do. Watch the sunrise in this one location. You know, these flowers. He wanted to show these flowers to her at some point that were from his hometown. How the idea that Frieren herself, why she has a hobby of collecting spells, is because Hamel loved her spells. So she kind of subconsciously starts to collect these spells because obviously it was something that he liked. It's this really cute dynamic. It's kind of showing possibility of this idea of there have being love there. Just unfortunately, mortality and the different races and their age limits and whatnot kind of separates them a little bit. There's a lot of interesting little elements they're kind of introducing through just the chemistry of the characters themselves and how they appreciate each other. The comedy is super good. I really do like the contrast of Frieren and how she's kind of very stoic. She doesn't have much emotion, but every now and then you'll see a smile, which kind of shows you that change in her. But I just love how she just could be so goofy sometimes, just so dorky. And I think it just does so well to make her into a character, not just the stoic, soulless doll. She has so much personality to her that you can kind of connect to. You can see the goofy sides of her and you're just like, oh girl, you're just so cute. I love it. And yes, technically all the mimics that she gets stuck in. Well, we got like I think it was two total official mimics. And then we had like 2 other shots that were pretty much the same type of shot of her being stuck in something. It's just so dorky. I love the mimics. The other interesting element they're kind of introducing, and I'm not sure exactly how deep this series is going to get in it. I'm really kind of curious. I've always been a fan of stories and world building that has a really well thought out magic system. Now, I don't know necessarily based on what little they've gotten to it so far if it's going to be that interesting, but so far they've kind of established this idea through her training Fern in how to do magic. They've represented this idea that there's 3 basic elements of magic itself. It's like how much mana you give it, how strong it is, and how much a mage can actually control it. Additionally, they got into this idea that magic itself has advanced a lot. Again, kind of pointing out this idea of the afterlife and the inability for mages to see souls is something that they're constantly researching and getting better. But additionally, through this Qual guy, this mage that created this piercing spell, we get a sign that magic itself has advanced a lot using what they've learned through the spell that he created. So they basically seal him away, and they started to learn about the spell and how to increase their defenses. But then it gets into the idea that, yes, this new increased defense they do, which disperses the magic, technically costs a lot of mana. And then, of course, Frieren saying, yeah, this is now a basic spell. The thing that you learned that killed so many people, I think it was like 70% of adventurers and 40% of mages, this spell that you learned is now just a basic spell. And she uses it back on Qual. And so, again, it's kind of showing that research process that's being put through magic itself. And yes, Frieren herself wanting to learn all these different spells that, yeah, a lot of them are kind of pointless. Like they have this one spell in this one village that literally just creates tea. There's a spell that creates flowers. There's a lot of what Fern believes as being useless spells that Frieren is just trying to collect them all. It's like her joy in life, her goal is just collecting all these spells, which again is technically caused by Himmel liking her spells. So I'll be curious to see exactly how advanced this stuff's going to get. And yes, we're kind of dabbling in this idea. There's a possibility there's more information we can get into with this legendary mage Flamme. I forget exactly how they pronounce it. I think it's Flamme. This legendary mage might possibly unlock a lot of things as well. And yes, of course, with the end of episode 4, we're already kind of establishing what it seems like possibly could be quite a journey ahead of us. I'm not sure exactly how long this will take. It seems like it's moving from story beat to story beat very quickly, so I'm not sure exactly how much they'll get trapped in a certain arc itself. It seems like it's jumping forward just to kind of keep things moving forward. But yes, Frieren does have this goal that she's seeking out, and depending on how they execute that, which again, so far they've been executing it really fantastically, could be extremely, extremely emotional. So I'm really looking forward to where that goes. It already has me really excited for the next episode. I just cannot wait. Just, again, through and through, absolutely fantastic show. Cannot wait for more. I guess I should talk about the OP and the ED because it seems like everybody, that's the only thing they're talking about with this show is this controversy around the OP being too many stills, too much auto-tuning, all this kind of stuff. It doesn't fit the show. I think it's fine. I'm not a huge fan of the auto-tuning. I'm not a huge fan of the distorted vocals and stuff like that in music, but I still like the group itself. I think it's a fantastic song. I think the visuals did very well in kind of opening it up. Would I want something that's more, I don't know, to a more fantasy or time period like this? Yeah, but it doesn't really bother me too much. I think the ED is fantastic. The music in the ED is so super good. So I was really enjoying it with the PB, and I enjoyed the full version of it as well. Now, the argument of it being like a bunch of stills, I don't know. It didn't seem like it was that much. It seemed like it had plenty of visual effects and stuff in there that it didn't really bother me too much. So it's still a good OP. And again, like I've mentioned before in previous videos, I fully understand that the reason why they chose that band was because Oshinoko, and it's extremely popular right now. And yes, OP EDs theme songs can sometimes bring in another audience, and they're trying to basically get this to have a lot of views on it. We'll see if Frieren's OP is successful as Oshinoko's, but anyways, that's my thoughts. This turned out to be a long video, but again, I'm technically covering 4 episodes, and I definitely will be covering this show every single week, so I hope you guys will stick around for it. If you're not already, make sure that subscribe button to get all my content. I do news, reviews, first impressions, top list. If it's anime, it's pretty much here. I'll be doing first impressions of all the shows of the season coming up, which is too many, but we'll see how many I can get through before I just croak. But additionally, if you like this content, you want to support the channel more, I have a Patreon link, tips link, super thanks, membership button down below. Greatly appreciate everybody does, and y'all take care.